everyone, welcome to another wrestling pay-per-view review from the CC Network. I'm Freddie Thomas, your ever-reliable host as always, and the biggest party of the season, 2017 SummerSlam, emanated as usual from the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, New York. Let's see if this pay-per-view event can shed bright lights on the best of WWE's product, or much like its predecessor Battleground, cast a very dark and ominous shadow as we venture into the second half of the pay-per-view wrestling year. Now, we had 3 kickoff matches on this show, which was a 13-match card. I know, it sounds ridiculous. With The Miz and his Miztourage defeating the Hardy Boys and Jason Jordan, Neville regained the Cruiserweight Championship defeating Akira Tozawa, which makes no sense as he won it 6 days earlier, and finally, in a match that should have been on the main show to begin with, the Usos defeated the New Day in a great match. And not just that, we saw Shawn Michaels as Colonel Sanders in arguably the funniest thing I've seen all year, as WWE utilised KFC's sponsorship money very wisely indeed. Now, we've got 10 matches to get through here, so let's dive straight into this thing. And we kick things off, surprisingly, with John Cena defeating Baron Corbin off an AA in 10 minutes and 11 seconds. Now, I say surprisingly for 3 reasons. Firstly, John Cena opening a pay-per-view card in 2017. As the Hurricane would say, what's up with that? Secondly, having a slower, more physical match open the card is very counterintuitive. I know you just had the Usos versus the New Day on the pre-show, but wouldn't that have been a better opener, considering it got the crowd on their feet before this pay-per-view even properly started? It doesn't make sense to me. And thirdly, having Corbin dominate this match so convincingly, making me believe they'll repair the damage from that failed Money in the Bank cash-in this past week on SmackDown, only to have Cena win with 1 AA? If the rumours of Corbin being in the doghouse with management are true, I can understand why this makes sense, but if not, it's just baffling. Because up until Cena's revival, I was enjoying seeing the ruthless and aggressive Corbin demolish the face that runs the place. Because I thought they were making Corbin look good in the only way that Cena can, by subtly selling it to oblivion. And he did pretty well for it as well, as it made Cena look like he was aging as he couldn't keep up with the speed and in-ring awareness of Corbin, as he countered the AA and 5-knuckle shuffle multiple times. It was lovely. And they had the ingredients to turn into a great match, but it just didn't translate that way, as the repetitive offense hurt the crowd. I mean, Corbin did the same under the bottom rope, round the turnbuckle post, back in the ring, hitting Cena 3 times. It was quite jarring, as well was the pace, because it felt really sluggish despite the occasional hints of speed, and honestly the crowd had the Cena stick to work off, and the "where's your briefcase," which made Corbin react well, was very overdone to the point where it got surprisingly tiring. And when you take in the suddenness of the win and the lack of length overall, it just hurt this match from being something great, and it gets a 1-star rating as a result. It was very disappointing, considering these two actually, under the right circumstances, could put together a decent match. And it's bad more so for Corbin than it is Cena. But I find it awfully weird that so many of you have become pro-Corbin since that failed cash-in. I mean, I've never been the biggest supporter of Corbin per se, but to have you guys, you wrestling fans out there, you bandwagoneers go, oh, he deserved to win Money in the Bank. Some people have to lose it sometime. And to see so many of you come out of the woodwork and just think that Corbin's the bee's knees, all because he lost the Money in the Bank briefcase, makes me wonder where you all were when he struggled to find his way up the card following the Dolph Ziggler feud he had in 2015. I was at least trying to find some positives, but I understand some of you did not. Anyway, this match was not the best start to the evening, so I'm hoping it picks up from here. And it had its chance with the SmackDown Women's Championship match that saw Natalya make Naomi tap out to the sharpshooter to become the champion in 10 minutes and 51 seconds. Now, considering how good in-ring both of these women are, I would have expected a match between them to be more than just decent. The match was quick and extremely physical, but with Natalya dominating and not giving Naomi much offense, it didn't make it feel like the big money-making contest that I thought it would be. You've got a charismatic champion against a very stiff, hard-working Hart family member. It should have worked out nicely, but it didn't. Also, even with the physicality and intensity on show, in particular from Natalya's apron catapult onto the LED post and Naomi's blockbuster from the steps to the outside and her springboard leg drop, there just wasn't that much light to it at all, and knowing that Naomi no-sold the punishment she was given later on, it just wasn't going to work out. Then again, the momentum shifting, big moves and intensity saved this bout from faltering quite far. But with the crowd not caring outside of those big moves, it was destined to not be saved by much, as it only gets a 1.25 star rating overall. And on top of that, Carmella didn't cash in her Money in the Bank briefcase either. Knowing that Corbin cashed his in a week prior, surely that opened up the ability for Carmella, a heel, a bad guy, who is hated by even the other bad guys on the women's roster, to have her cash in on Natalya would have been superb. Unfortunately, it was not done. And honestly, it annoys me because I really want to see this briefcase used properly, and they've missed a few great opportunities to do it. And as you can see, SmackDown's opening contests have performed poorly. Hopefully Raw's opening contest on this massive card, 3 matches in, can actually prove to be the icebreaker that hopefully starts this show up right. Unfortunately, I know a lot of you are thinking it's not the case because Big Show and Big Cass was next, with the 7-foot-tall guy defeating another 7-foot-tall guy who's happened to have 20 plus years experience off of 2 big boots and an Empire elbow in 10 minutes and 29 seconds. Now, I know that many of you did think that this was the most boring match on the card. In fact, it could even be the worst. I personally can say that while I agree it wasn't the most exciting thing ever, you'll be surprised how much story and body psychology can make a slow, plodding, nothing match interesting. Because as you can see, by the rating factors on screen, the working and selling of Show's injured hand, Show's resilience to fight back from the injury, and Enzo oiling himself up to get out of the damn cage made this match have enough substance to be enjoyable. And a person like me, who loves these kind of things with psychology and body selling, that stuff, that is my bread and butter when it comes to pro wrestling. So a match that I didn't give a damn about going into this show actually became worth my time. And that was all well and good. And it also went just about as long as I'd expect it to be, while at a methodical snail's pace, which worked well though for Cass, because he went over as a dominant giant who is willing to beat you down whichever way possible and likes taking time about it because he doesn't give a damn. Overall, you have a match that performed a million times better for me than it should have. You all may think it's rubbish. For me, I think it's a 1-star rated bout. And that is actually quite flattering. Because yeah, I fully expected this to be the worst match of the night, and it wasn't. Thank you, Psychology, thank you, Big Show, thank you, Cass, thank you, Enzo, for turning a potential train wreck into something tolerable, and I owe you all for that. However, I understand that a lot of you will not agree with what I've just said. You'll think this is the worst match on the card, nothing can sway you. I think I can go one better, because seriously, having a few 1-star rated, poor, mediocre matches on this card to begin, you'd think in my brain it couldn't get any worse. Well, the flat-out squash of the man that I handpicked in last year's Wrestling Rant Awards to be the rising star of 2017... you know it obviously can get worse, as Randy Orton defeated Rusev with one of the sickest RKOs I've ever seen, but it was over and done with in 10 damn seconds. And seriously, I understand after losing to Jinder Mahal on 3 consecutive pay-per-views that Orton was due a win. I can fully accept that. But to have it happen in such damning fashion that humiliates such a great talent and puts Rusev down so comprehensively was unacceptable. And when you give thought to how good Rusev has been in the past and can still be to SmackDown's roster, it makes this decision even more insane. And ladies and gentlemen, if you want to know what a burial looks like, this is it. If you have been misusing the term buried or burial or hitting someone over the head with Triple H's golden shovel, then this is the match that will highlight it for you. This is what a burial looks like, Plain and simple. And honestly, I was looking forward to these two, putting on a hard-hitting match that could have been the sleeper hit of this pay-per-view. But instead, what we got was a pretty decent starting but throwaway contest that did nothing for the wrestler who won it, and surely isn't going to help the one who lost it. It's an out-and-out zero and a failure as a match. Sure, it was put together at the last minute, but you could have at least tried to inject some story and some meaning behind it, but no. They just threw Rusev under the bus, and I am not happy with this. To make matters even worse for the Bulgarian brute, he's now been in the 3 worst pay-per-view matches that I've seen this year, which is disheartening for a wrestler who I thought would have a really bright 2017, but in stark contrast, all hope for him is gone, and if the rumours of him asking for his release are true, and this is indeed the last WWE match for now for Rusev, I would be very upset indeed. And after that train wreck, we want to see something really jack up the crowd and get things moving. But instead, we got the Raw Women's Championship match, as Sasha Banks defeated Alexa Bliss, making a tap to the bank statement and become a 4-time champion in 13 minutes and 18 seconds. Now, Bayley's arm injury was unfortunate, but I expected these two to better their Great Balls of Fire bout, which I think, if I remember correctly, got 1.25 stars from me, even though the lack of story implications would have played in. Sadly, I was proven wrong, as this match fell flatter than a flatfish on Flat Tuesday. The fact is, I can't put the blame entirely on the booking, because most of which goes to the apathetic Brooklyn crowd not allowing this physical match to have a chance, given how most of the poor main card had been to this point. They were getting restless, they were getting angry, and just as physical and as aggressive probably as the psychology that came out of this match, which was the one good thing that came from it. As any Alexa Bliss match can attest to, she works that aggressive, physical, hard-hitting style that I love so much, even if it is very limited. And Banks worked into it well because she sells good, and I like that. And it went at a pretty solid pace too, so why am I angry? Well, I felt the match went on a little too long, and it didn't help itself with a crowd who had seen matches of similar length on this night fall really below par, and having Sasha win makes the need for Bayley's heel turn to become more amplified, as she's got a ready-made opponent when she comes back from that injury. Otherwise, taking the belt off Bliss makes no legit sense. And on top of that, the psychology may have been the best thing this match had, but to have Sasha Banks lock in a bank statement with a hurt arm that she injured earlier on in the contest, it was the final nail in this match's coffin, and honestly, it was just a very underwhelming, disappointing mess of a contest. It tried to do something, but no one cared, and seemingly by the end of it, the wrestlers didn't either, as they had to force through a title change, which I hope to God has some meaning behind it, because if it doesn't, this would have truly replicated its half-a-star rating that I'm giving it here. Good lord, to think these two could have put on a worse match than their prior one was unthinkable, and sadly, thanks to Brooklyn, it was made entirely possible. Okay, as you can tell, halfway through this SummerSlam, it is looking pretty dire. It is taking a nosedive. It is going into the epitome of what a rubbish pay-per-view is. Surely, halfway through the card, something has got to give. Something has got to break the straw over the camel's back and rise to be a good contest. Surely, the best match on the night is not going to be on the pre-show. When you give that mantle to a man who hasn't wrestled on pay-per-view in just over a year, and of course, Bray Wyatt, who has had a rubbish 2017 since WrestleMania, anything is technically possible, with Finn Balor's Demon defeating Wyatt off a coup de grace in 10 minutes and 40 seconds. Now, the build-up to this match left a lot of people slightly bemused. It was very boring, very mundane, and in WWE's modern product, it replicated how stagnant their creative writing was. And you'd think the match, even with the Demon spying on interest, having not appeared since SummerSlam the year prior, would have actually made this match interesting. Well, I gotta say, the build-up didn't make this match look appealing. But when you have two athletic men of two different sizes, and you know what they can do to resurrect that premise with a simple battle of wits in a fast-paced contest, spiked with the intrigue of the demon returning, honestly, this match had the ingredients for something good, and actually, it turned out to be so. The match showed off how different in temperament Balor is under this persona, not being scared of Wyatt's mind games and the domineering physical presence he has, leading to a fast-flowing offense shifting equally in a bout that made this match actually very, very enjoyable to watch to some degree. Both men came out of it looking good, but Balor was given the chance to showcase what an enigmatic freak of nature he is within the ropes, especially under that guise, and it kept the crowd alive with steady support and enough atmosphere to make this match feel like it was worth going through quite a very tawdry build-up to reach this point. It wasn't anything special, and it could have used more body selling and aggression and actually more time to make it feel more of a spectacle for the dream match it was trying to be. And also I'd like Balor to change his moveset under that persona to make it actually feel like he's a different person, but the fact is, all in all, I was perfectly fine with the average 2.5-star bout we got here. It did enough to make me care about what could happen next between them, if it indeed goes that far. And finally, in a good bit of news, it's taken 1.5 hours in showtime, but this card finally has a good match on it. It's only average, but I really don't care. If anything reaches 2.5 stars, it is immediately considered inside my good books if you don't know by now. If you're here for the first time, that's how this works. Now, let's see if this night can keep this momentum going, because I really want to see if this SummerSlam can indeed be salvaged. And with the Raw Tag Team Championship match following shortly afterwards, I think you can see where this is going, as Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins won the titles, defeating Sheamus and Cesaro of a Dirty Deeds in a manic-insane finish after 18 minutes and 36 seconds to showcase the return of 2/3 of the Shield. And not just that, Dean Ambrose became a Triple Crown champion, having held now all of the main WWE male championships outside of the SmackDown tag belts. Now, when you put 4 of the best wrestlers in WWE today into a match together, you'd be aggrieved to not think they'd produce a stunning match from it. And my god, they did. They crafted one of the best tag team matches in recent memory, outdoing their SmackDown counterparts whose pre-show efforts deserve to join them on this bloated main card. The match was frantic from start to finish as both teams looked to outmaneuver and destroy each other in equal measure, as Seth played the face in peril to perfection as the champions took Ambrose out and dissected the man who vanquished Triple H only a couple months prior at WrestleMania, only for the lunatic Fringe to do exactly what he does and just get stuck in rather than waiting on the sidelines. It was pretty damn nice. And with the energy that creates, it made a good standard tag bout have the ability to get spiked into overdrive thanks to many dramatic near falls, some great double team moves, momentum shifting constantly, creating an unpredictable atmosphere. And all in all, having a sublime crowd performance on top of it, it really heightened how important and big this match was. Not just to the people, not just to the wrestlers involved, but to how this card had suddenly shifted. It was pretty damn good. Now, 2/3 of the Shield have reunited and won gold. Cesaro and Sheamus looked fantastic, and not just that, Cesaro became my spirit animal by going into a crowd of people and destroying a beach ball they were chucking around. If I know the pay-per-view wasn't that great up until this point, I fully sympathise, but you do not throw a beach ball around a crowd at an event that you paid hundreds of dollars to go see. It's baffling how many people do this nowadays, and I absolutely hate it. So Cesaro, I tip my metaphorical hat to you. You are superb. And at the end of the day, this match was a shot in the arm that this show needed. Now, while there wasn't a lot of body psychology, it lasted a little too long for my tastes, and there just wasn't enough crowd reaction before that beach ball incident to rise it up even further. I'm still going to give this match a rating that I rarely ever give to modern day tag matches on pay-per-view, which is a 4-star rating. To think that I'm actually annoyed this didn't go any higher than a 4-star rating shows just how good it is in its basic principles. This match took the simple story of Ambrose and Rollins with the will they won't they, booking it perfectly and capitalising on it to create a great moment, and before it, a fantastic match. This is exactly what SummerSlam needed, and all four of these guys, they deserve a lot more. Sheamus and Cesaro, after you're done with your rematches, I want to see you guys do something great and win bigger titles because you guys deserve it. And what a way to get this event back on track. Let's move on to the next match as SmackDown has to try and top that. Well, in my honest opinion, somehow, some way, they managed to, and it was the United States Championship match with Shane McMahon as the special guest referee, where AJ Styles did something that no one else on this card had managed to do and retain his title, pinning Kevin Owens off a Styles Clash to cape that belt around his waist in 17 minutes and 24 seconds. Now, it does pain me to say that up until this point, AJ Styles versus Kevin Owens hasn't been the feud of the year that I or many expected it to be. Now, their Battleground bout was a tepid and uninspiring mess that was intentionally holding off until this blow-off, while their Backlash encounter was good, but not worthy of the level that I knew both of these incredibly talented wrestlers could reach. Come SummerSlam with Shane McMahon pushing storytelling to the forefront with confrontations, incidents, and facial expressions aplenty, this rivalry, this match, had vigour, energy, and undoubted intensity as both men fought tooth and nail to not only get one over on each other, but the referee who had beef with both of them in the first place, and one of them dating back all the way to last year. The crowd were into this aggressive action from bell to bell, and it rarely had a break as momentum shifted on a dime so fluidly. It was so equal that you really couldn't tell who was going to win this thing. It was great. And on top of that, even in its slower moments, you had Shane McMahon being the antagonist to both wrestlers as they shared multiple near falls in almost identical circumstances. It was brilliant in building up its drama, and it was stunning. It was just so simple. I love simple psychology, and this match was the epitome of that, and I loved every single thing they did in that. Okay, there wasn't as much body selling as I wanted, but everything else in that front was so good. And to see the story that both of these men and Shane did in crafting this lovingly simple psychological tale of one-upsmanship and apparent betrayal at the hands of the biased official, quote-unquote, was extremely entertaining to watch. And again, like I've said, while it wasn't out-and-out perfect, it did score very well for its troubles. I rated this higher than the tag team match because you know me, I love my psychology, and the crowd was just on their feet, and it was exactly what this kind of match between these two needed. It's a 4.25 star rated match, finishing off this underwhelming rivalry in glorious fashion, and I could not be happier that on a big stage like this, on a big 4 pay-per-view, these 2 and 3 in the case of Shane McMahon delivered in spades. And it seems no matter what Shane McMahon is in, he makes the match worth seeing. Crazy, and that may be. SmackDown, well done on matching your Raw counterpart this late on the card. However, we have to take a little bit of a downturn to the WWE Championship Match, SmackDown's main event. And I can't believe I'm about to say this, Jinder Mahal defeated Shinsuke Nakamura off the Colossus in 11 minutes and 25 seconds. What the hell is that? After getting the crowd back into this pay-per-view, you think, oh, the inevitable's going to happen now. Shinsuke's going to kick Jinder's head off and the crowd are going to go into hysterics. Well, that didn't happen. And to say this match was nothing special, given how lackluster the build was, is understandable. The result will undoubtedly make fans unhappy, and it caps off quite a meagre bout that one of the best wrestlers in the world in Nakamura should have won with apparent ease if it was a real-life shoot fight. But no, Jinder had to win for some reason. If they were going to end the title reign now, that would have been the best idea. Have a new champion going into the autumn, drum up interest for SmackDown, but unless they're building a rematch at the next SmackDown pay-per-view, and that is Hell in a Cell in October. If they can somehow justify a Hell in a Cell between these two, I'd love to see them try, but it's just not going to work. And I don't understand the point of Mahal winning here. And the crowd was surprisingly muted for this. Okay, they were giving Nakamura a lot of support, and that helped build up the anticipation, but they were quiet during Jinder Mahal's offense, because they were waiting for the inevitable of Shinsuke Nak's victory, but got badly stung as their desire to retain enthusiasm and chant that pro-Nakamura support periodically didn't matter in the end, and they were very unhappy. Now, while I can criticise the Brooklyn audience for that, they were the highlight of this match, because it went shorter than many expected it to be. It was slower than I wanted it to be, despite the early psychological mind games and the speed that was shown, and with the Singh brothers once again interfering in a finish we've seen before, this match did not fall very far from the Mahal Championship Match tree in terms of moves, tropes, and quality. This match, as a result, gets the same as last month's Battleground Punjabi Prison match with a 1-star rating. Now, Shinsuke Nakamura deserves better opponents, as him and Mahal had no chemistry in this match, and they delivered quite a poor one at the end of the day. Now, I expected more from what was billed as the Blue Brand's top feud. It didn't bloody feel like it, that's for sure. It reflected in the fact that the match was just like the build, being lifeless and drained of enthusiasm, but at least we got shots of the Hindi and Japanese announce teams rallying behind their men. That is great. I just wish the match was more than what we actually got, because that was disappointing. However, our sorrows were short-lived, because it was time for the most anticipated SummerSlam main event for some time. The Fatal 4-Way for the Universal Championship, with Brock Lesnar retaining the title. Yes, he beats Samoa Joe, Roman Reigns, and the almighty mountain among men, Braun Strowman, with Reigns eating not just the F5, but the clean pinfall as well, after 20 minutes and 53 seconds of insanity. And when I say insanity, I bloody mean it, because this match was the craziest thing I have seen as a wrestling fan for quite some time. All four big men looked incredible. In particular, Braun Strowman, as he demolished everyone and everything in sight. He put Lesnar through 2 announce tables. He put one other announce table on top of Lesnar, causing him to be taken out on a stretcher. He threw an office chair at Roman Reigns' head on the way to that. And just, all in all, watching Strowman manhandle 3 giant men and throw them around like ragdolls was utterly enthralling. I can't believe a year ago we were all doubting whether Braun Strowman had any purpose outside of the Wyatt family. They've turned him into an absolute machine. A monstrous one at that, but I would happily see him rip apart any and everyone for weeks, because it never gets old watching how creative they utilise it. But on to the other wrestlers here. Reigns played this hard-hitting yet resourceful bull of a man that timed his attacks to perfection to change the course of a match effectively. Joe was the cunning specialist who utilised his time to wait for others to wear each other down before attempting the Coquina clutch, which of course Lesnar had been made to pass out from before. Logically, that would be good to do. And Lesnar, well, he got beaten up because he's the prime target, only to show his resilience and how inhuman he was, coming back from behind the curtain and destroying all in sight, and winning the belt and the match. I can't believe that he actually retained it, and I'm actually surprisingly happy that he did, because all 4 of these guys looked $1 million. And I know many wrestling fans can say that and go, oh, this guy looked $1 million when losing a match. I thought Corbin did until the finish earlier on in the evening, so we get to hear all of these men looked absolutely stunning. And they are main eventers now, officially. Reigns we already knew, Lesnar we already knew. Strowman and Joe, they've been made by this contest. It is utterly ridiculous. The crowd was psyched from bell to bell. The pace was unrelenting, and the match went 20 minutes. Not too long or short, even though I would have preferred it to slow down a little bit. And while the storytelling surrounding all of these kickouts and the destruction on show made all these men look like amazing stars, not to see a lot of body selling and more crazy spots and weapon usage stopped this absolutely fun and brilliant match from hitting the pinnacle of 5 stars. But it came mighty close. Ladies and gentlemen, This match was spectacular. It is an epitome of what wrestling is to people like me. It is manic, it tells a great story in its subtle simplicity, and my god is it just thoroughly entertaining. Ladies and gentlemen, the main event of SummerSlam 2017 gets a 4 3/4 star rating. If you have not seen this match, me talking about it is not actually going to do it justice. You are doing yourself a disservice. Go and watch this right now. This is the best WWE match, at least on my rating scale, since WrestleMania, when Seth and Triple H went to a 4.5 star match in that pay-per-view. And my god, this isn't just one of the best SummerSlam main events ever. It's one of the best fatal 4-ways this company has ever done, if not the best. And it's just an amazing way to end a show that went from something so horrible to the absolute opposite of that. And with that in mind, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for me to give my final thoughts on this mammoth show. And I kick off quite comprehensively with where I've just surmised. I feel really conflicted about this show because how can a pay-per-view be this bad for most of it, end up turning itself around and score near consistent home runs for its ending? I'm sorry, but the way WWE books its shows, so the undercard underperforms to make the main events look better, may be a horrible spectacle, especially on a 4-hour main card, but in hindsight, stacking this card at its summit no doubt saved it from falling flat on its face as one of the worst SummerSlam events ever. However, even with the euphoria in my voice at believing in some shock that this event managed to save its own ass, it doesn't stop me from roundly criticising the lackluster first 5 matches that really didn't do what the beginning of a pay-per-view card should do, which is excite the fans and settle them in for what comes later, and by failing to do that, they nearly lost Brooklyn completely. But they managed to salvage the evening with 3 matches of the highest order, sandwiching an underwhelming WWE Championship match in the process. And now while some were falling asleep during this show, even in its worst moments, I was still entertained, and I was kept awake, so I can't be too harsh, but due to this card's lopsided nature and quality, this mediocre show does better than I would have expected it to be based on that first 2-hour segment, but because of it, it doesn't stop me from roundly docking at potential points. This was a SummerSlam that felt quite bad, with no foresight to how damaging and pointless many of these matches were. But it also showed how good WWE's product can be if things are done right. This may not be a flat-out average show by any means, but if you want to see a chalk and cheese comparison of what good and bad in wrestling and the modern day product are on the same show, this is Exhibit A of that scenario. And I understand that all of you, including me, wanted this SummerSlam to be better than Battleground, because Battleground was atrocious. And it seemed, while some of the matches managed to say, look, we apologise for that shit show, here is something good. The rest of the matches, the undercard that should have enticed us to stay interested, didn't. And if I wasn't reviewing this show, for the YouTubes, I would have happily told the WWE Network, I would like my money back, please, because it just wasn't worth it for half the damn card. And for those of you who have the free trial, I feel you would have gotten your worth by the end of the evening for certain. And honestly, the biggest party of the summer didn't feel like a party per se. Well, actually it did. It felt like a proper party where it starts off with someone drinking too much and vomiting all over the sofa, causing all kinds of issues. But by the end of the day, you've sobered him up and you've had a good time. That's basically what this show was. And while I am still certain that this will not be the worst SummerSlam I've ever seen, I am uncertain over what's going to happen in the autumn, because WWE's traditional worst season business-wise is coming, and I don't know what's going to happen. There's still a lot of kinks in the armour. But at least this SummerSlam has shown that WWE still have their heads screwed on in some aspects of their shows. Because while half this card may have been pretty bad, they managed to completely flip it on the other side to show how great they can be, and in the end, it's going to get a mark to reflect that. Overall, SummerSlam 2017 gets a underwhelming and quite frustrating yet reasonable score for what it had of a 10-match card of 4 out of 10. Yes, where even 3 4-star plus matches could not take it above average. That is how bad the opening 5 matches were, ladies and gentlemen, and it showed how they sagged the show. Now, like I've already highlighted, it's not the worst SummerSlam I've ever seen, but it could have been if WWE's creative team let their guard down. Now, going into the autumn, Raw has a lot of good things going for it going into No Mercy in late September, but SmackDown, I swear to God, you've only had one great match on this dual-branded card, and it makes your brand look quite bad. Especially if your only other good match is on the pre-show that a lot of people didn't see. Just going into the autumn with the return of the NFL, for the love of God, repair the cracks, and actually I would say chasms, the Battleground caused SmackDown, because you're in dire straits and you need help. I'm hoping WWE know what to do, because this SummerSlam, if it's done one thing, it shows how bad SmackDown is and how good Raw is. If that was their intention from the get-go, I am heavily disappointed, but at the end of the day, what more can I say? SummerSlam is done with, and this review is finished. I hope you've all enjoyed, because seriously, SummerSlam this year is a very divisive one, and I want to know what your opinions are. Go to Twitter at CCNetworkYT and debate me there on how this all goes, or even put the comments in the comment section, because I do want to know what you guys thought, because so many different opinions out there. Some are cancelling their networks, some of them are saying it's a great show because the main event was amazing, some are just in between, and some are just like me, where it was all right, but nothing special. All in all, the next pay-per-view will be No Mercy, which will be in late September. I hope you're all looking forward to that. And of course, in September as well will be the next Wrestling Video Friday flashback, featuring Survivor Series 2003. It's going to be damn good stuff. And of course, if you want to see what else this channel has in regards to video game content, and of course, phones and stuff, all you have to do is click the subscribe button there, and I will gladly appreciate your support. I have been Freddie Thomas, you've been people listening. This has been the WWE SummerSlam 2017 review video for the CC Network, and I will see you all next time.